Net zero is devastating for regional people. It was very annoying sitting next to the Teals. It's almost like a sense of entitlement that they can inflict on regional people, basically putting poverty onto top of pensioners. We have small businesses that are becoming insolvent. We have families that are divided down the middle via their position on intermittent power precincts, swindle factories, with transmission lines going all over our area. Yet this is not an affliction that is worn by those who laud it and say it's a wonderful thing. That is, those in the urban capitals. They don't want them on North Head. They don't want the transmission lines over Mossman, but they do want them in the country because, you know, they're with the peasants, and the peasants should suffer those sort of sins because that's why God put them on this earth, to deal with all the junk that the enlightened want while small businesses go broke, pensioners go into poverty, our nation deindustrialises, and we have China breathing down our neck, as the Japanese Prime Minister would be telling us about right now. I think, as Mr. Littleproud said, I think everybody knows my position. My position is adamantly against net zero, not an amelioration of net zero or a sort of a refinement of net zero or an amendment of net zero. I want to get rid of net zero. That is exactly the position I've got, and that's exactly where I think our nation is best served. We used to have some of the cheapest power in the world. Now, with the more and more intermittent, they're not renewables. Don't fall into the nomenclature of the billionaires, farms, renewables, net zero. It's all rubbish. I mean, it's intermittent power for which the greatest beneficiary, of course, are the billionaires, that very small, highly affluent group who get secret capacity investment schemes underwritten by the taxpayer, so they get paid even if they don't produce an electron. And we think this is all okay while the pensioner takes it in the neck. It is outrageous. I know I don't need to be part of a discussion. In fact, it's probably better that I'm not there, and that is so that the room can have the confidence of what they say stays in the room. Because, you know, my position is known, and they know it, and they've known it for years. And, you know, I want to make sure that our nation moves away from this. Absolutely absurd, Laura, to think you're going to run a nation on intermittent power, that you're going to run a nation on sort of temporary wind, temporary solar, when what you've seen is a direct correlation, Laura, between the increase in your power price, which went up by more than 25% last year, 40% increase in energy prices, and the more and more intermittents that have come onto the grid. And then we think there's going to be some sort of epiphany that all of a sudden physics is going to change for us, just for us in Australia. And at the same time, Laura, this has no effect on the weather. None. We're just going to turn your area into an industrial sort of landscape and then leave the rubbish there later on when it becomes obsolete. Do you think it's right to say to Australians in general, we're just going to deindustrialise so that if we have a point of conflict, we're not actually able to defend ourselves? Because we did that because, it was going to be so damn awkward in that building if we didn't support it. And the millennials in Sydney, we had to do something about that, didn't we? And you say, but mate, you completely buggered your nation right now to families.
Yeah.
And I back ourselves in that if you argue your case about how this hurt, which is absolutely evident, and the outcome, which is absolutely impossible, is absolutely something you should go to an election and argue your case. I'm prepared to do that, and I hope others are as well.
Right, strap in, because Barnaby Joyce just pulled another classic Barnaby, and this time, it's left the Nationals party room looking emptier than a pub at 10 a.m. on a Monday. My position is known, he says, like that's supposed to clear the air, when really, it's just Barnaby's way of saying, yeah, I'm not showing up, and I don't care if it ruffles feathers. So here's the setup. The Nationals were having a big meeting, one of those serious political powwows where they try to look united, even if half the room's silently wondering who's going to stab who next. And while they're inside debating, plotting, and trying to figure out how to make net zero sound like less of a death sentence in the bush, where's Barnaby? Not in the room. Not even pretending to be. He's out there, talking to Sky News, spitting fire like it's a Sunday Arvo rant at the Tamworth RSL. Barnaby's gone off like a rocket. No party, no filter. Smash like, subscribe, and grab the not far right, just right shirt link below. My position's adamantly against net zero, he declares, because of course it is. I want to get rid of net zero, get rid of it completely. You can almost hear the producers rubbing their hands together, knowing this soundbite's going to dominate headlines for a week. It's pure Barnaby theatre, blunt, defiant, unapologetic. And honestly, whether you love him or can't stand him, you've got to admit, the bloke knows how to make a scene. He's railing against renewables, transmission lines, city elites, swindle factories, that's a new one, and intermittent power. It's the sort of colourful language that makes the man a media goldmine. He's angry, animated, and laser-focused on one message. Net zero is killing the bush. You can picture him sitting there, hands flailing, voice rising, eyes blazing as he paints this picture of regional Australia being trampled by inner-city environmental dreams. And he's not wrong about one thing. Plenty of country folk are sick to death of being told what's good for them by people who've never seen a drought up close. But Barnaby doesn't just poke the bear. He charges it head-on, waving a red flag that says, "I dare you to stop me." He goes on about the peasants, yep, his word, being the ones stuck with the pain while billionaires and city slickers pat themselves on the back for saving the planet. You almost expect him to pull out a pitchfork mid-interview. Then Laura Jace, calm as a surgeon, asks the obvious. "Barnaby, why not go to the meeting? They're literally talking about this right now." And you can feel her trying not to roll her eyes when he says, basically, "They already know what I think. Mate, that's like skipping a team meeting and saying, 'Nah, they know I hate running.'" It's not exactly leadership, but that's Barnaby for you, a man who runs on instinct and gut over process and patience. He's got that trademark Aussie stubbornness turned up to 11. You could tell him the sky's blue, and he'd squint at it and say, "Yeah, well, depends who's paying for the clouds." And then there's the elephant, or maybe the kangaroo, in the room, Pauline Hanson. Yep, there's been chatter that Barnaby might be flirting with One Nation. And honestly, it's not that far-fetched. Both he and Pauline love a good anti-establishment crusade, a few fiery soundbites, and a crowd of voters who feel left behind. When Laura hints at it, Barnaby dodges like a man who knows exactly how much trouble an honest answer would cause. "Laura, my position is known," he repeats, the political equivalent of no comment. At this point, he's sounding less like a party loyalist and more like a bloke setting up camp on his own paddock, waiting to see if the neighbors come knocking or the storm rolls in. The tension here isn't just about net zero, it's about identity. The Nationals are split between those trying to modernize and stay close to the Liberals, and those like Barnaby who reckon the whole thing's gone too soft. He sees net zero as surrender, selling out the bush for some inner-city virtue signaling. And when he says, "It's better I'm not in that room," it's not just stubbornness, it's strategy. He's putting himself above the party fray, carving out his own brand, the last of the old school, boots-on-the-ground Nationals who'd rather lose than compromise. And you know what? He's kind of right about one thing. The tension between the regions and the cities is real. It's the great Aussie divide. In the city, climate policy is about feeling good and doing our part. In the bush, it's about whether the lights stay on and the bills get paid. Barnaby's tapping straight into that frustration, the sense that Canberra is more interested in Paris than Tamworth. But Laura's not letting him off easy. She presses him again, if dumping net zero's the plan, what's the alternative? And Barnaby, with that classic smirk, basically says, that is the plan. He doesn't want to tweak or reform net zero, but later. He wants it gone. Dead. Buried. Cremated. It's a stance that's as bold as it is risky, because while the bush might cheer him on, the cities, and let's face it, the media class, treat him like a fossil fuel ghost haunting modern politics. But Barnaby doesn't care. He doubles down. Every line he delivers sounds like it's been workshopped in a pub argument, passionate, messy, but utterly authentic. Then comes the zinger. Are we a different species in Australia than in America, China, or India? He asks. All these people don't believe in net zero, but somehow we do? It's classic populist flair, turning logic into a weapon and putting the audience in the driver's seat. He's not talking to Laura anymore. He's talking to the viewer at home who's nodding along, beer in hand, thinking, yeah, fair point. And that's Barnaby's superpower. He makes politics feel like a conversation, not a press release. You might not agree with him, but you get what he's saying. You don't need a PhD in climate science to follow along. Still, the contradictions hang heavy. Here's a man who says he doesn't need the Nationals to make his point, but also insists he's staying with the Nationals because, well, you've got to go with a block of votes. It's like a bloke saying he's single but still living with his ex for convenience. He wants the clout without the compromise. By the end of the interview, Laura's clearly had enough. She thanks him politely. He thanks her back, and you can practically see her sigh as the cameras cut. Barnaby walks away smiling, knowing full well he's just hijacked the news cycle again. But let's zoom out for a sec. This isn't just a quirky Barnaby episode. It's a snapshot of a bigger crisis inside Australian conservatism. The Nationals don't know who they are anymore. Are they the party of pragmatic farmers trying to adapt? Or the voice of resistance against everything green and globalist? Barnaby's defiance forces that question into the open, and he doesn't mind being the lightning rod. He's not just fighting net zero. He's fighting irrelevance. He sees the Nationals drifting toward polite centrism, and he's dragging them back to their roots with a bullwhip. In his mind, compromise is the beginning of extinction. My position is known, he keeps saying, and that's not just about policy, it's about identity. It's Barnaby reminding everyone that, love him or hate him, he's still his own man. And you can bet, somewhere in Canberra, David Littleproud's watching this interview with a headache and a half. Because what do you do with a bloke like Barnaby? You can't silence him, he's too loud. You can't sack him, he's too popular in the bush. And you can't ignore him, because every time you do, he finds a camera and steals the show. In another world, he'd be Trump's kindred spirit, and funnily enough, he kind of is. Trump's back in the White House now, the 47th president, and Barnaby clearly sees that populist, anti-establishment energy as vindication. You can hear it in his tone, that same defiance against the elites, that same faith in the common bloke over the bureaucrat. He sees Trump's win as proof that raw authenticity still beats polished politics. That's why Barnaby's gamble might just pay off. While others tiptoe around climate talk, he bulldozes through it, confident that frustration in regional Australia will only grow. He's betting that when the next election rolls around, people will be less worried about carbon targets and more about power bills. And if that happens, his known position might suddenly look like foresight. Still, there's a fine line between conviction and self-sabotage. Refusing to even sit in the room, that's not strength, that's isolation. The Nationals need influence, not martyrdom. If Barnaby keeps skipping meetings and throwing grenades from the sidelines, he risks turning himself into a symbol, not a statesman. But maybe that's exactly what he wants. Because symbols last longer than leaders, and Barnaby, for better or worse, is a walking, talking symbol of rural rebellion. So yeah, my position is known might sound like a cop-out, but it's pure Barnaby Joyce, blunt, proud, and built for headlines. While the rest of Canberra tries to play chess, he's out there flipping the board, saying, "Bugger your rules, I'll make my own." And whether you think he's a champion of the forgotten or a chaos merchant in a cowboy hat, one thing's for sure, he's not going quietly. Because in Barnaby's world, politics isn't about playing nice, it's about making noise. And right now, he's making plenty of it. So grab your popcorn, because this story's far from over. The Nationals' civil war has only just begun, and Barnaby Joyce, love him or loathe him, is standing front and center, arms crossed, saying loud and clear, "My position is known." Smash that like if you reckon Australia deserves better. Subscribe, keep your eyes open, beers cold, and grab the not far right, just right shirt, link in the description.